We are starting a brand new series, and I am going to be covering all the steps that myself and other wellness champions have taken in recovering from multiple sclerosis in the Live Disease Free plan. So, these steps are really profound. This is treating the cause of our diseases. And today we're going to talk about the first step, which is the diet, the Live Disease Free diet. This is truly the very first thing we have to do to recover from chronic disease. So, we're going to talk about why we are using the Live Disease Free diet, what the rationale is for that, and also the guidelines so that you can start to follow it and you can start to feel better right away. So, if we haven't met, my name is Pam Bartha. I am the author of Become a Wellness Champion and the founder of Live Disease Free. I can speak on this topic because I have recovered from multiple sclerosis and I have helped many others do so also. And we call them the wellness champions. So, I'm going to share with you the guidelines that we use to recover. So, to get our life back, to feel better than we have felt in many, many years. So there are so many different diets. There are many different MS diets and health diets. How do we know what is the best diet for us? Well, we have to first understand that yes, our body does need nutrition, but it's much more than that. What our body needs is it needs food to feed our body, but because we are dealing with chronic infections that are causing the disease, then we have to make sure that we're eating in a way that is not feeding the infection so actively, but more feeding the body. And that's what we do in the Live Disease Free diet. So, what do these different types of parasites thrive on? It is carbohydrates. So, with carbohydrates, then we understand that bacteria, I just want to make sure that you guys can hear me. Yes, there you are. Awesome. So we know that bacteria and fungi and parasites, worms and protists, their favorite food is carbohydrates. So we're going to eat in a way in the Live Disease Free diet in a way that we're decreasing the carbs, but we are still having tons of nutrition and we're having a lot like protein and vitamins and minerals and we still have calories, so we still have energy. And this is a very, very important first step. So I'm going to go through the guidelines. So again, the rationale why we follow this diet is because we are getting the carbs low enough so that those infections that are causing our symptoms, they are less active. We start to have less inflammation. The inflammation starts to decrease and we start to have symptom improvements. And that's what I'm looking for in a coach and my students to see, if they're following it correctly, are they having symptom improvements? And I'm going to share with you some amazing symptom improvements from very new wellness champions that are following this plan right now. So again, if you haven't followed my work, make sure to look on livediseasefree.com, my website, and then you can learn about the different types of infections that science has discovered are involved and creating these horrible neurological symptoms that we're dealing with, not just with MS, but with other chronic diseases also. So I have worked with hundreds of students in the Live Disease Free Academy, and we've been able to fine tweak the diet, the Live Disease Free diet, very, very well. And we have to understand too that with these infections, we're not just dealing with parasites in our intestines. So a parasite is any microbe that causes harm to us. It can be bacteria, fungi, worms. So those are multicellular. It can be protists. All of these different types of living microorganisms that live in us and cause us harm are parasites. And with our students, we're seeing that the sicker we are, the more infested we are with these disease-causing parasites or microbes. And again, I mentioned that they thrive on carbohydrates. So the first step in recovery is diet. And what we would avoid all the grains, so grains, so all of the different grains, and that includes things like flax and amaranth and quinoa and chia seeds, any grains, you just avoid them all because they contain disaccharides and we don't digest them well, so they become food for the parasites in our intestines. We also avoid all sugar and all sweeteners, including stevia, because we want to get rid of our sweet tooth. We know that sugar is like putting gas on a fire. It's the most favorite food for these parasites. So we avoid all sugar. But we do also avoid things like stevia so that we get rid of our sweet tooth so we don't crave sweets. So then it's easy for us to maintain this diet after. We also avoid all dairy products except for butter or ghee. Ghee would be the best because then we're taking out the milk protein and the little bit of milk lactose that would be left in the butter. But some people can tolerate butter fine, but ghee would be just cleaner because then you're just getting the fat. And we definitely have no alcohol because a lot of these parasites are producing a lot of alcohols already. And so our liver is working hard to get rid of the toxins and the alcohol. We do not need to give it more stress. And we also get rid of all caffeine in our diet because caffeine is a stimulant. It does stimulate us, but it will also stimulate the parasites. So those are the things that we eliminate from the diet, and also legumes and dried beans because they contain carbohydrates that we don't digest very well. So that becomes food for the parasites, especially in our intestines. So when we're sick, the biggest base camp of the problem is in our intestines. What can we eat? This is the important thing. We can eat 9 to 13 servings of vegetables per day. There are so many different vegetables that we can eat. They're low carb though. We're not having potatoes and corn and peas, things like that, but we definitely can have a lot of different greens. So there's all kinds of lettuces. Iceberg doesn't have a lot of nutrition in it, but there's red leaf, romaine, green leaf lettuce, arugula, there's spinach, there's kale, there's Swiss chard, there's collard. There's so many different leafy greens. And having variety is going to give us a lot of different nutrients. So we're having lots of leafy greens, but then there are many other vegetables we can have also. Broccoli, cauliflower, string beans, not the dried beans, but string beans, yellow and green, and asparagus and the Chinese vegetables. So there's tons and tons. So the cruciferae family. We can have things like peppers and carrot and a tiny bit of beet, those and avocado, tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, but those would be like a garnish on a big salad. So it's a very small amount for flavor and color. But those vegetables like the carrots and beets, the root vegetables, they're going to be higher in carbs. So we're not going to eat big servings of them. We avoid the squash, etc. So I do have a guide, which is on our Facebook Live Disease Free community. If you join that, you can go in there and you can grab it, and it gives you more details like of which specific low carb vegetables to avoid. So things like corn, peas, potatoes, sweet potatoes, anything that is starchy and very filling and satisfying, we would avoid it because it is higher in carbs. And so with the diet, what we can eat is a lot of vegetables. So if you were, let's say, vegetarian or vegan before, you still are eating tons of vegetables. You might be eating more vegetables with this diet than you did with a vegetarian or vegan diet because we can eat a lot of grains and we might not get enough veggies. So this is lots of veggies, moderate amounts of animal protein with every meal. With respect to the animal protein, it's very important that it is, and all the food is as close to its natural state as possible. We do not want to be having ham and bacon and sausage where things have been added in and we may not know. It might be some fillers, a little bit of sugar or honey, etc. And that small amount can make all the difference of whether you notice symptoms or whether you don't. These microbes, many of them are so small you can't see them. So what's really important to understand is they don't need 3 meals a day. They don't need to eat a lot. And we want to keep our blood sugar level really, really steady so that we don't have the ups and downs during the day. And that really makes a difference. So again, it's mostly vegetables. So that's super healthy and nutritious. We're having animal protein that is not processed, so it's a complete protein. And then we're having enough healthy fats to maintain our weight. And some of us would like to lose weight, so then maybe we won't eat as many healthy fats. Some of us, like myself, cannot afford to lose weight. So then we're eating probably around 9 or more tablespoons of healthy fat per day, which is completely opposite of what some of the traditional diets said. They said, oh, fat is bad for MS, for other people, it causes heart disease. No, it doesn't. We're having things like butter, and grass-fed butter is great, but if you can't afford it, butter is fine. Also, extra virgin olive oil, cold pressed organic olive oil. You can find it at Costco. And coconut oil is another great one. MCT oil is another great one. Some people even put MCT oil on their salads, in their tea, because it doesn't taste like anything and it gives them more calories, more energy. So with this diet, as we decrease the carbs, then we increase the healthy fats. Healthy fats are very high in calories. So that's how we are maintaining our calories so we don't have to lose weight. Of course, we're not just having tons of fat. We're having 3 big meals a day and 2 snacks. You have to eat on this diet. You don't starve yourself, which is really awesome. And if you're somebody who's like working still in physical construction, but you're still sick, then have 4 meals a day. It's fine. Or maybe you're really, really sick and you're nauseous and you're like, Pam, I eat like a sparrow. Those students would start with 4 small meals a day. They can't eat big ones, but then their appetite comes back and then they can eat a lot more. You'll find that as you eat this way, you're going to have a much greater appetite. You're going to feel better. You'll feel sustained throughout the day. You don't have the ups and downs with sugar, and you have constant energy. And a really important key to write down is make sure you have protein with fat with every meal. Really, really important. If you skip the protein and you just do vegetables and fat, you will be hungry in an hour. If you don't have enough fat, you will lose weight. So very important, all 3 with the veggies. Let's see what else we have here. So the target is 35 to 40 total grams of carbs per day. 35 to 40 total grams of carbs per day. And this means that this is including fiber, sugar, and carbohydrate, and sometimes even break starch apart. But anything that is to do with carbohydrates, you lump it all in together, you total it. It should be between 35 to 40 total grams of carbs per day. Very important. If you go over 50, you're not going to notice any symptom improvements. If you get down to that 35 to 40, you're going to go, wow, this is amazing. Like, I'm starting to notice symptom improvements. That really is the sweet spot. And some students have gone down to 30 and they felt even better. But this is what I'm saying is the minimum. I know with keto, very often they're down to 20 grams of carbs per day, and we're between 35 to 40. It makes all the difference. So how can I track this? How can I know for sure that I'm in the target zone? We use the Chronometer, which is a free app on your phone. CRO, so Chronometer, CRON, just carry on, but that is a free app on your phone. And when you put your food in that you're eating in a day, go down a little bit on the page and you'll notice that it says total grams. So don't measure net grams, measure the total grams of carbs. If you guys have any questions about the diet, go ahead and type them in the question box and I will answer them as soon as I'm done. So like sometimes we think that, and we're definitely going lower carb than we have before, but we might not be low enough. And the Chronometer really helps you to see like, oh my gosh, I had 2 cups of Brussels sprouts and that's like 20 grams of carbs. That's basically half of my daily allowance just in that. I guess Brussels sprouts are a little higher, cabbage is a little higher. So we don't have 2 cups of those vegetables. We might have a half a cup of them as a serving, right? And we'll have 2 or 3 different servings of vegetables, have leafy greens, and you're able to keep the carbs in the target zone. What if I can't afford to lose weight? So like myself, slim, and a lot of times when we're sick, we have a lot of parasites in our intestines, a lot of stomach issues. We also have that inflammation. We're not digesting our food very well. So between the inflammation and between the freeloaders, the parasites that are eating our food, we're staying very, very slim. And it feels like no matter what we eat a ton of food, that we're not really able to gain weight. So then what we're doing with this diet is we're decreasing the carbs, but increasing the healthy fats. So you will be able to maintain your weight as long as you eat enough. If you miss meals, if you miss snacks, you will lose weight. But again, we are going this slow as we are getting ready to treat and through the treatment. And then you'll find that you will increase the carbs a little bit once you've recovered. But you'll see that this is such an energizing diet that you feel so good and you don't have the ups and downs and you have a lot of nutrition. It's like an anti-aging diet. So you're going to find this balance for yourself. You might have a little bit more fruit at times. You might have a little bit of some of the good grains like quinoa, etc. But that's once you've recovered for a long period of time. I eat very little grains now. I can, but I just feel better when I don't. So healthy fats, we talked about those. Those would be the extra virgin olive oil, cold pressed organic, etc., coconut oil, MCT oil, good quality ones. Butter is fine. And we're just making sure that at least 50% of our daily calories are coming from fat. For some of us, it might be 70% if we don't want to lose weight. So we just have to make sure that we have enough. Some of us have inflammatory bowel disease also. Like some of my students have severe constipation when they start, but others have diarrhea. And so if you have diarrhea, that means that you just have inflammation in your intestines, just a little bit different sometimes than others. Sometimes it fluctuates for some people. They have diarrhea and constipation, and it goes back and forth. If you have diarrhea, then what our students will do is they'll still eat this way, but they will cook their vegetables. They will look on the shopping list and they will cook the vegetables that agree with them. Steam, saute, oven roast, or stir fry. And as they go low carb and they're cooking their vegetables and they're avoiding all raw vegetables, then their digestive system starts to settle down and it becomes more quiet. And we've just had a student just very recently, she's getting ready to treat, and she's like, wow, my stomach has not been this quiet since I was in my teens. So it works also, but with diarrhea, maybe you avoid the nuts for sure, right? Because maybe that would irritate you, and the raw vegetables. But you still can have the healthy fats. That's not going to cause diarrhea. The meat won't. And also the vegetables that agree with you. That same lady, she figured out too that she was sensitive to kale. So she was eating kale, but she found that once she stopped eating the cooked kale, that her diarrhea stopped. So when we have leaky gut, inflammation in the gut, then we can get immune responses to different types of vegetables that we shouldn't have an immune response to. So this is where a little bit of trial and error, and if you suspect you're sensitive to a certain food, you omit it for sure. So again, as I mentioned, there are people that are really desperately looking for the right diet, and maybe they have, gone towards vegan diets or they're vegetarian, and I have no issue with those diets other than if you are sick and if your microbes are out of balance, those diets are really, really high in the foods that feed the infections. So it doesn't matter if it's organic sugar or if it's organic fruit or if it's organic honey, all that sugar will feed the infections that are making us disabled. So that is why we shift. And so people that work with me that were maybe vegan or vegetarian, especially vegetarian, they were still eating tons of vegetables, 9 to 13 servings per day. But they are also having things that are easier to digest. So they're working their way into it. So maybe like a little bit of some eggs, some fish, possibly some chicken, and starting with that, right? And so there are vegetarians that do have eggs and fish. So if you can eat those foods, you can still follow this eating plan. And then really our digestive tract just gets used to what we're eating. All right, so it is a really, really powerful tool. And what I want to share with you right now, I'll go to a few questions. Oh, that I just saw one thing that I really want to address right now in the comments, and it's smoothies. So when we grind up fruits and vegetables, then we are pre-digesting the food. So normally our teeth are grinding the food and our saliva, so that's part of our digestion, and then the food goes down into our stomach, and so we have more enzymes and digestive juices, and our body is breaking down the food and releasing the calories, the nutrients, the food, vitamins, minerals, etc. for us. When we grind things up, we literally are processing it. We're pre-digesting it. That releases the carbs a lot more, so our body doesn't have to work so hard. So when we drink it, and we're concentrating the fruits and vegetables too. So when we drink it, our blood sugar level goes up, and that feeds the infection. So my students never have smoothies. And even things like one student just recently joined, and he said, well, all I do is I put, kale and cucumber and lettuce, like all the not sweet, drier or more bitter vegetables and grind them up into a juice and drinks it. But he didn't notice any symptom improvements just within the first few days, because he started, and then I got a chance to talk to him, and he said, I'm still doing that. Is that okay? And I said to him, I said, these vegetables are lower in carb compared to some others like potatoes and corn. But when you blend it and you puree it and you're concentrating it, then something that is low carb becomes much higher carb, and it can actually feed the infections, and they will be very, very happy. So we don't do that. We enjoy our food, we chew our food, we use our digestive system. And it's very important that when we're chewing, to understand that when the clenching of the teeth is really helping the brain to detox, which is very important. So it's opening up little channels so your brain is able to detox. That is part of very important detoxification process in our body. So we want to use that. So we always chew our food. Maybe in a couple of years when you're well, and if you want to just do some greens and try it. But we found that something like that will hold students back. They're not able to recover. So that's very important. Thank you for sharing that. So I'm going to share a few successes, and then I'll go to your questions. So with respect to these successes, I have them right here. So these are students. We have students joining all the time. And again, the first step that they're doing is the Live Disease-Free diet. And the Live Disease-Free diet really helps them to see, when they're following it the way I have it laid out, when they get the carbs low enough. That's the trick. It's not Pam's magic thing. It's getting the carbs low enough. When they do that, they start to notice really significant symptom improvements. It can be in as little as a week. And that really excites them. I actually had one student who's our first student from a country, Kuwait, just a couple of days ago. And just the day before I talked to him, he started the diet. And he was able to find that he could start walking up the stairs better the following day. And his mom noticed that also. He had a little bit more strength. That's shocking. He's a young guy, like he's, 30s, 20s. So these are just a few other students. So Gay shared, I have MS and I notice that my knees don't hurt. I can get down and play with my cats on the floor, and I don't have to hold on to things, which is so awesome. And then Cheryl shared, and this is just with the diet. And then Cheryl shared, my bladder has improved. And then Kate shared, I don't have as much inflammation now. My bladder issues are much less at night, not as much pain, and greater ability to be mobile on my crutches. Heather shared, I'm feeling pretty good. I have more energy. I'm more alert. I am sleeping more sound at night, and my bladder has improved. And she is one that's had tremendous improvements. Again, the diarrhea totally settled down. Lenore shared, I want to thank you. I'm noticing improvements with my bladder. You can see a common theme where the students really notice within a week's time their bladder really starts to improve, which allows them to sleep, right? They are sleeping better. They're not getting up through the night, and that is a really important step in healing. She shared, I don't need to get up at night to go to the bathroom as much. I'm able to empty my bladder completely, which is nice. Sherry shared, her success story is, I've only been following the diet for 5 days. The pain in my legs and feet has greatly diminished. I have some control coming back in my legs. This is definitely motivating me to keep going. Shirley shared, I'm following the diet, and I get up less at night to use the bathroom, and I lost 4 pounds. So she's someone who wants to lose weight. And then Gay shared, I have multiple sclerosis. I am walking better, and I'm walking longer distances outside. My steps have improved tremendously. My balance has improved. Speech has improved. Writing has improved. And I have more energy, all from the Live Disease-Free diet. So these are the kind of things that I hear week after week after week. And again, what it means is that we are infested with different infections, different parasites. And as we decrease the food to them, they are less active. We have less inflammation. We have symptom improvement. If we went back and had, a big piece of cake, it would flare up, right? They'd be like, wow, this is great, binge time, and they produce poisons, more inflammation. And inflammation is our immune system fighting the infections and the toxins they produce. So that is why this is such a powerful, powerful tool to start recovery. And we're going to be sharing in the next few weeks the steps that we take to recover. The second one will be supporting the body. So before we want to treat, we have to, number one, feed our body lots of nutrition, but also decrease the food to the infections, make them less active. Then we want to support our body in many different ways, and I'll talk about those steps next week. So I'm going to go to your questions. Hi, Maureen in Ottawa. Hi, Morris. Hi, Laura. And Ronnie. Hi, Laura. So 9 to 13 tablespoons of healthy fat, cold pressed extra virgin, coconut oil, olive oil. Just sip it. No, like if you have 3 meals a day and you have like 3 tablespoons of fat with your meal, then with each meal, that's already 9 tablespoons of fat. So if I have a huge plateful, and maybe I should mention too, about 2 weeks ago, and we will put them all together in a playlist in Live Disease Free YouTube channel, all of the steps, but we will include the video that I did 2 weeks ago where I talked about what I eat for breakfast, what I eat for dinner, what I eat for supper. So with my breakfast, it's greens, and I have a lot of greens. I usually like arugula or baby kale or some type of green like that. And eggs, we have chickens, so we're eating our farm fresh eggs. And so I'm very general with the olive oil. I just pour it one direction, pour it the other. And then if it's left over on the plate, I will scoop it with a spoon and drink it because it is calories for me. I'm slim. So it's easy to get 3 tablespoons of fat with one meal, and that would give you 9 tablespoons right there. Some of us need a little bit more. Some of us, if we want to lose weight, some people want to lose weight. They might want to lose, I've had students that are 200 pounds, 250 pounds. So they're like, well, no, I'll just put some fat on, and it's easy to lose weight and you feel satisfied and you're not starving yourself. This is not a starvation diet. So very simple to just add it. You can add, butter to your eggs. You can add, if you grill a steak, you can melt some butter on top and put some fresh garlic chunks on top and salt and pepper, and it's delicious. So just make sure you're getting enough. That's the key. With MCT oil, some people put it in their tea because it's tasteless, or they put it on their salad. You can have it by the tablespoon if you didn't get enough, for sure, but it's usually enough just to put it on your meal. And fats make your meals taste really good too. It gives it a lot of flavor. So definitely, John, the smoothies are a no-no. And even with kale and fruit and some almonds. So almonds are high in the carbs, and so is fruit. So when you're grinding that up, you won't notice any difference with the diet, just so you know. And even if it's once a day with a smoothie, like I said, these parasites do not need 3 meals a day. Our body maintains a glucose level, so there is a blood sugar level constant in our body that keeps us alive. And so whether our body is going to break down glycogen in the liver for it, whether it's coming from our food, etc. And so it will maintain enough sugar in our blood so that the parasites are never going to die. But what we're doing is we're decreasing it enough so that we don't have these surges in blood sugar. We're keeping it very, very steady. And very often it's a little bit lower than normal. And that's a very healthy state to be in. Hi, Rosanna. Hi, Joanne. Okay, will this make us get strength in our legs? Yes. If you decrease the inflammation, as you've seen with the students that I just shared, we have seen, not in all students, it really depends on how well they follow the eating plan. But the ones that follow it really well, they have noticed less spasticity. They have noticed decrease in pain. They've noticed more strength in their leg. And this is all because the inflammation is becoming less. It's still there. The infections are still there, but it's less. So yes, you can have a little bit more strength in your legs. The most strength will come back when you treat the parasites, for sure. And that will be part of the series. That will be basically towards the end. John, what if you leave them chunky so your stomach can still digest? So, John, I guess what I just want to share with you is that the students that follow the steps and they follow it like They want, like they're in school and they want an A plus. Those are the ones that go the farthest, the quickest with their recovery. The ones that are like, well, what about this? What about that? Well, a little bit of this shouldn't hurt. Those are the ones that just don't really move forward. And then they have to switch over eventually, anyhow, and then they start to move forward. So you you want to detox your brain. When we have chronic disease, I don't know if you do or not, but when we have chronic disease, we have infection in our central nervous system. So we need to be detoxing our brain. So we need to be chewing our food. It's pleasurable, it's enjoyable. So chew your food. I would really suggest that. Hi, Dinah. Will this help with Epstein-Barr? So Epstein-Barr virus it's basically something that is more active in people that have severe dysbiosis. So it's usually not just environmental toxins, but they're like, what is suppressing our immune system so much that we're susceptible to viruses being more active? And this is something that we see even in the viruses that we have today that we're dealing with these issues. I'm not even going to talk about it, but we're seeing that the people that have the most negative outcome with viruses are people that are having a lot of parasites. They have a lot of dysbiosis. They're really out of balance. Too many disease-causing microbes in their body and not enough health-promoting microbes. So this definitely, as you work through all these steps in the Live Disease-Free plan, you'll notice that you're not susceptible to viruses. Your immune system deals with them. You don't get the long, whether it's influenza or COVID or whatever the new flavor of the year is, that you might get a bit of a flu, but you get over it. And sometimes we're asymptomatic and we don't even get sick. So this is the missing piece of the puzzle, is really working on your microbiome and bringing it into balance. And that is really what we're going to focus in on, the last step in the Live Disease-Free plan. But we have to first get ready. So I would really encourage you to take what I said today, start to implement it, right? I'm doing this for you for free because I know it will change your life, but I'm giving you the instructions and you have to follow it. And I tell you, it's worth it. It is so incredibly worth it to even have it's exciting when you start to get some small symptom improvements within as little as a week. So no grains, right, Karen, absolutely no grains or starchy vegetables, like things like sweet potato or potatoes. We don't even have the squash. The only squash we will have is zucchini. A little bit of zucchini seems to be fine. But again, we're not going to do like a huge plate full of zucchini noodles, because then count it with a chronometer and you'll see like, whoa, 20 grams of carbs. So what am I supposed to eat for the rest of the day? I'm already, just about there. So it's moderate amounts, just small servings of zucchini squash, but all the other butternut, Hubbard, all of those other squash will be too high in carbohydrates. All right, so Joanne, you have drop foot. I can't promise you'll recover, but what I can see is a lot of people have recovered their drop foot, not just with a diet. Some have had some small improvements with a diet, but it's really when you start treating, that's when the big improvements come. So yes, Karen, we would avoid all of the starchy vegetables and all of the grains. Hi, Melissa. Have you ever heard of someone in the program who wasn't able to get rid of parasites? How do you deal with this issue? The only way that you don't get rid of parasites is if you just stop, if you don't treat them well enough. So that's the thing, is that they're just living microorganisms. And if you, let's say, just used herbs and you don't treat them well enough, then you're not going to completely clear them. Everybody's different as far as what types of parasites they have. It's like, what were you exposed to and how long have you had them? How populated are they in your body? Have they moved into the central nervous system significantly? Are they more localized in your intestines? All of these factors come into play. But as you treat cycle after cycle, but we're talking about the prep phase right now, the diet and supporting the body, that's this week and next week. That's really the key to making the treatments work better. So if you just want to take a drug to try to treat parasites, you'll be very sadly disappointed, because the doses we take are safe doses, but it is challenging to treat in the central nervous system, in the organs, etc. That is why we have to use strategy. And strategy is don't feed the enemy so much, support the body. And then what we do is we start to build a game plan. And when we're treating, we are layering the therapy. So we're using parasite drugs, we're using herbs, and we're using oxidizing agents. So all of that together is where the magic happens. So the only way that we don't get rid of the parasites is if we don't treat them well enough. And that is our own personal decision to do that or not. So Karen, you eat spaghetti squash. It's too starchy for recovery. So it's a healthy vegetable if you are in balance and if you don't have disease symptoms. But if you have chronic disease, we found that it is just too starchy for recovery. It'll make it so that you can't stay in the target zone. Karen, how do you start the program? How do you start the program for a 23-year-old diagnosed with MS? So we've had students that are 16 years old that are diagnosed with MS, and they do really, really well. Very often they're able to become symptom-free in as little as 3 months. It depends on the person, but they're usually very motivated and their parents are helping them. So if it's a 23-year-old, this is an independent person. So if you're let's see, for a 23-year-old, so I don't know if it's your daughter, but whoever this person is if they're really wanting their life back, if they really understand how serious multiple sclerosis is, then yes. And the earlier you catch the MS, the earlier you catch these parasites, the easier they are to treat and the more recovery we have, right? The longer we let them grow in us and move into our central nervous system more and more and more and cause damage, then it does take longer to treat. It could take up to 18 cycles or more. Whereas if you're just catching it early, it might take 4 to 6 or 3 to 6 cycles to treat. So it is really important to treat as early as possible, and especially when we're young, because our body is much more resilient, which is awesome. Love to support this 23-year-old. Hi, Daryl. Is a small amount of, I don't see here. You have to add it in there. I don't think you finished your message there. Hi, Karen. So watch out for fats as you have gallbladder issues. So with people, we have students that have had their gallbladder removed, and you can actually get ox bile, and they might use some enzymes too. So they might use, and so like one of the students I was sharing today, that she has her gallbladder removed, and she's absolutely fine eating this way. So you can have a little bit of the ox bile, and you can have enzymes. Lipase helps to break down fat, so that would be helpful there. Hello, Aurora. There. Cassava. Sorry, I don't know what that is. I do know, but I don't remember because it's not something that I eat a lot of. If you're not sure about a certain food, then just go to, if you just type in a food, like a vegetable, and then behind it, you put USDA, then, and so put the food and then the total grams of carbs, USDA, and then you'll do a search on that and it'll pull up that food and it'll tell you carbohydrate by difference. That will be the total grams of carbs, and that will include everything. And then you'll see, like, is it something that is part of the low carb vegetables? So all the different greens and the broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, green and yellow beans, zucchini, the Chinese vegetables. There's tons of vegetables we can eat. We can have some Brussels sprouts too, but just not 2 or 3 cups with a meal. That would be too much. All right, so what I want to ask you right now before I finish the questions is, how many of you are going to start implementing the Live Disease-Free diet? Type in the comments. I want to hear. I want your commitment, and I want to see next week if you've had any small improvements in your health, because if you take me up on this, you will for sure. All right, so Veneda, I think that's how you pronounce so you're following the eating plan and you struggle to eat 3 meals a day. In the beginning you did, but now you feel that you're finding you no longer struggle. That's exactly what I shared. Thank you for sharing that. So a lot of us have different habits with our diet, right? Some of us might not eat a breakfast, and intermittent fasting is fine if you're relatively healthy. But if you're really infested with parasites, then you have to eat a fair bit, twice a day, and that can cause your blood sugars to be a little bit too high. And so that will feed the infection. So once you're well, if you want to intermittent fast, that's fine. But to get well, you want to keep the blood sugar very steady, and you want to keep it a little bit on the low side. Again, you're not hungry, you're very satisfied, but you're shifting your metabolism to be a fat burner versus a sugar burner. And that is a very, very healthy way to be. So when our students start to eat this way, sometimes they're not used to eating this much food, or maybe again, they're nauseous because those infections produce toxins that make us feel nauseous. We don't feel like eating. But if you just start with smaller meals, maybe 4 a day, then you'll notice that your appetite comes back, just as she mentioned, which is so awesome. You're very welcome, Joanne. So, John, I've been avoiding dairy and gluten. What are your thoughts? Well, yes, all the grains, so the gluten grains, but also things like rice and quinoa and millet and amaranth and chia seeds. We avoid any grains. All of them are avoided. We're literally having lots of different types of greens, and the cruciferous vegetables, so the broccoli, cauliflower, asparagus is not a cruciferous, but asparagus, beans. But we can have cabbage. Careful with cabbage. Cabbage is fine, but it is higher in carbs. So don't have a plate full of cabbage. This is why the chronometer is really helpful. You can kind of measure, go, oh, well, maybe I'll just do like a half a cup of cabbage, right? Instead of 2 cups of cabbage. And just get a variety, get a rainbow on your plate so that you are getting a variety of nutrients. Very, very important. That is part of recovery. Joanne's wondering, how do you know if you have parasites? When we get to that last part, we will talk about it. But you can go to my videos on YouTube and Facebook, Live Disease Free, and I talk about symptoms of parasites. I think there's a whole section that we have a playlist on different infections and parasites, etc. So you can go there and look at that. But it's parasite symptoms are very common. And actually, all the symptoms from multiple sclerosis, the veterinarians have known that when small worms get in the spinal fluid of domestic animals, they have all the symptoms of MS. And Dr. Alan McDonald found those little worms in every MS patient that he studied. So we'd like to do follow-up research on that, but it's pretty fascinating. And that's just one type of parasite. So Janet's wondering, what's your go-to meal for dinner? So I assume dinner is supper time. And so what I would do for dinner is I like to have a big salad for lunch. And then for dinner, I do more cooked vegetables. That's just a habit we're in. Like we're just go, 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 my husband and I. So we will have some type of meat, whether it's grilled or barbecued or oven baked, etc. And then we'll have at least a couple of cooked vegetables. And because we're so busy, most of the time it's literally like steamed broccoli. Sometimes we like to saute bok choy, put a little sesame oil on it, a little bit of ginger on it. But you can oven roast. We just oven roasted cauliflower in the oven. And again, we're just so fast busy. I grabbed Italian herb, nothing but just herbs. So a blend of Italian herbs. I first rubbed olive oil all over the little pieces of cauliflower, the chunks, and then I sprinkled them with salt and pepper and the herbs of Italian seasoning, and just put that in the oven for probably 20 to 30 minutes on around 400 degrees, just till you poke it with a fork and it's good. So you can do that with broccoli too, or steam. A lot of times we just steam things and put butter on it. So a couple of vegetables, some meat, and what we do for flavor is just bringing in the herbs. So the fresh herbs are really nice, but in the wintertime, dried herbs great too. So we have all kinds of herbs, and we just like to use dill, and we love garlic and ginger and basil. I put fresh leaves of basil on top of my eggs as I'm cooking them in the morning. We love that right now. There's lots of basil where we live, which is awesome. Dill is amazing in salads, it's good in soups, it's great everywhere. So the boredom is number one, is avoided if you, and I guess this is a really important topic to talk about also, is we avoid boredom by being prepared, by taking a few minutes on a weekend and saying, okay, what am I going to eat this week? I'd like to eat this, this, and this. And okay, we'll make extra so we have leftovers for lunches. And then you just buy enough of the meat and the vegetables, have it in the fridge. And then maybe there's a day where you do a little bit of extra prepping. You might throw, a couple of chickens in the oven and throw something on the barbecue. And so you've got some extra meat cooked. Make a really, really big salad that fits in the fridge, but that you can eat for 2 or 3 days so that you've got, within 3 days, it's still looking really fresh. And that way, it's just a quick grabbing things and go, or making enough for your at dinner so that you can actually pack it in your lunch the next day. And it's really nice because a lot of people are sick and tired of sandwiches. And I noticed that when I used to be teaching at school, I would always bring my leftovers from dinner, supper, and have them in, different glass containers. And people would be looking like, oh, that looks so good. And then after a while, you start to see everybody's bringing their leftovers and they're not eating sandwiches anymore. And that's a lot healthier if you have healthy leftovers, right? So we can do things to make it a lot more simple. You get in the groove. It's a really easy way of cooking, and it's very energizing, and it really helps to decrease the inflammation in the body from any infections. So Kimberly is going to commit. So John is going to try. Jen is waving her hand. Yeah, you guys are awesome. So Cameo. So you are living on the disease-free eating plan. Yes, I love it. And Dita, I want to see some more people who are going to commit to following the Live Disease-Free diet. And I want you to check in next week. So I see your names here. And I want to see next week that you have decreased the carbs, and just go to Live Disease-Free Community in Facebook, print off the cheat sheet there. So on the front, it tells you what to eat. On the back, there's guideline summary. Put that in your kitchen, plan ahead, watch the video I did 2 weeks ago about what I eat for breakfast, dinner, and supper. Very, very simple. Get the sugar out, get the caffeine out. Yeah, you might have some sugar withdrawals for a couple of days, but it's going to go away. If you eat regularly, it's a lot easier. Don't just miss meals. And then report back to me next week the improvements you've had in your symptoms. That's what I want from you. That's awesome. So Sandra is going to try. Jerry, what do I eat for protein? So any kind of meat. So you can have beef, you can have chicken, you can have fish, you can have eggs, you can have pork, whatever you like, but just don't have ham, sausages, bacon. Bacon is notorious for having sugar in it. And same with ham. Sausages usually have fillers in it. So just if you want to have a sausage or some type of burger or something, just get ground beef or ground pork and just make your own patties, make your own meatballs, make a double batch, triple batch, freeze it. You can have, if you don't like eggs in the morning, you can make some really nice breakfast sausages that you can freeze, but just don't trust things that have been processed by other companies, because they usually sprinkle a little bit of sugar in because it makes things taste better. And sometimes they don't even have to include a lot. They don't have to put it on the label if it's a small enough amount. Awesome. Anne Marie is going to go for it. Melissa, do you have some good recipes for kids on the program? So with kids, it's like, with what a lot of people do is like the sickest person in the family will really start to follow it strictly. But it'll be, it's not a lot of work, because you're just literally like, before you put the barbecue sauce on the steak, you're pulling your meat off, right? And you can have all of the rest. But making little small changes. I know one thing that's really great is to just do a big tub of cut up vegetables in the fridge so kids can just grab them, and you can make a homemade mayonnaise. And it's just a simple, we need to post it somewhere. Maybe we'll post it in the Live Disease-Free community. There's tons of different mayonnaise recipes, but it's basically you start off with an egg yolk or two, and then you beat in some oil and bring in some lemon juice, etc., some seasoning, salt. And that basic recipe, you can make it like a garden vegetable dip with vegetables. You can make a spicy mayo dip to put on your steak or any kind of meat. You can also make like a creamier Caesar salad dressing by adding some anchovies and possibly a little bit of capers, lots of garlic. So that mayo recipe is really great to get extra healthy fats in you and to get the, to make the vegetables more interesting for kids. Kids love to dip things. And with children, we don't necessarily go as low carb for them as we do with adults. We definitely get rid of like all the processed things and get rid of gluten and dairy and give them things like organic quinoa and rice and things like that. As a little bit of carb is fine, and a little bit more fruit. So my son had asthma when he was young. When I was first diagnosed with MS and I had to stop nursing, I went on prednisone. And so he developed, as soon as he went on formula, he started to develop allergies and mucus and asthma. And I controlled that so well with diet, and he was not eating as low carb as I was. So kids are very resilient, and just by making sure you give no juices and just keep all the different processed sugars out, and just give them some fruit and give them some, they can have a little bit of grains and give them dip for their veggies. And I even had one student that was really sick. His dad had MS. They did the program, and this little boy had epilepsy. And they noticed by decreasing the carbs that his epilepsy, he had no more seizures. And we know that very often in epilepsy, it is a parasite in the brain. We know that kids that have epilepsy, that low carb keto diet is better than any medication for them, again, so that it's just more evidence. So this is not something I came up with. It's my observations of researching and what's working with all these different diseases. It's all low carb. That's what works. Hi, Faisal. How about to satisfy hunger? Make sure to include healthy fat with your meal. Protein and healthy fat with every meal. So for a guy, maybe 3 to 4 ounces, whatever you feel satisfies you. I wouldn't do like 6 ounces or more, because if you eat too much protein with a meal, it does break down to glucose. Your body can break it down to glucose, so you can have a higher blood sugar level. But just most people find that just having, I don't know, for myself, 3 to 4 ounces of animal protein with the vegetables is what I need, and I feel satisfied. So having enough healthy fat with your protein with every meal and never missing meals, you will feel satisfied. So Victoria, what do you think about Manuka honey for Lyme and MS? Absolutely not. It is, yes. So it is so let's put it this way. If you don't have chronic disease and you have a sore throat, then if you use Manuka honey, then definitely it can help to kill the bacteria in your throat, for sure. It has great medicinal properties, but it's very, very, very high in sugar. So it is not going to be strong enough to kill the parasites. So even the herbs, like things like wormwood and black walnut and the cloves, like those, when you go into the health food store and you find the herbs that kill parasites, they're not enough to recover from MS. You might pass a few worms, but you still have MS. So when you have the sugar from the Manuka honey will be much more detrimental to any benefit. So absolutely, we would avoid all. And it is a healthy food, but that's only if you're in balance, if you don't have a parasitic infestation. So Rosanna, you're living the Live Disease-Free diet. You've been doing that for 8 months? You better start reporting your improvements. I need to hear them. Awesome. And if you're not having enough improvements, then make sure to just check the carbs and get them a little lower. Get the veggies, the low-carb veggies up, the healthy fat up, and the carbs, the total grams of carbs lower. Hi, Rob. Your biggest problem is that you can't eat nuts or eggs and you're starving, and then you cheat. So I don't know, maybe you are sensitive to nuts, or maybe you can't control yourself with eating nuts. The thing is that, Rob, the first step is the diet, but you have to start treating too, right? So we have students that are, and this is where you just have to, I think the biggest thing for you is planning ahead, making sure you have enough food, doing 4 meals a day, adding enough healthy fats, and you will be able to maintain your weight. And then we want to get to treating, right? We don't want to just live with these critters forever. There is no diet that will kill them. And as we get older, they become more populated and they do slowly wear on our health. Just eating low carb slows them down, but that's the issue, is we have to definitely treat them also. Couple more questions and then we're going to go. Um, Jerry, what about the things like Crystal Light? Absolutely not. So we avoid all artificial sweeteners. Get rid of your sweet tooth so that when you're done, like, I don't like the taste of when people are eating disgusting processed desserts. I don't like that. Your taste bud will change. So I used to enjoy a glass of wine. I could care less anymore. There's some really nice, I still like just Perrier or San Pellegrino with some fresh lemon or lime. It makes me feel good. It's refreshing. You can get other flavored waters as long as they're organic and they're not using chemicals that have no sweetener. They might have an essence of a fruit flavor, but the Crystal Light, that I can't remember if that is aspartame or if it's an alcohol sugar, but we would avoid that, because if you continue to have sweet things, you will continue to crave sweet things, and then you fall. You'll start to take things in that you shouldn't have. If you stop eating sweet things, then your taste buds will change and you'll go, I don't even like that. That tastes gross. So that is called freedom. So you're free from caffeine, you're free from alcohol, you're free from up and down energy, you're free from up and down weight. And it's just, you just focus on living your life. That is freedom. So Faisal, if you're hungry at 3 o'clock in the morning, that means you didn't eat enough at night. So that means you need to eat more during the day. If you eat more during the day, you'll find that you don't feel hungry at night, for sure. So this is where I know you just started with me like just a few days ago. So once I see what you're eating, I can give you some feedback. Hi, Jerry. Electrolytes. So we'll talk more about this later, but basically electrolytes, like if you're fasting, juice fasting, or if you're doing enemas, you definitely need to replace electrolytes, but otherwise not necessary unless you're doing something else that your doctor has recommended that I'm not aware of. Sandra, you have a lot to learn. Awesome. Excited for you. I can't wait to hear next week from you guys. Karen, you're going to try. Yay, that's awesome. Victoria, what nuts do you recommend? And pumpkin seeds are fine, but again, very small amounts, once or twice a day for snacks. Never anything after 6 o'clock at night. They're harder to digest. So a very small handful, like about an eighth of a cup of nuts once or twice a day. And on that list, the Live Disease Free Facebook community, there is that guide and it'll tell you which nuts we avoid and which nuts you can have. What is a protocol for treating parasites? Anne-Marie, that is coming. So I'm just going to stop here because we've gone an hour. I am so excited for you. I'm so excited that you're going to start to implement these steps. I can't wait to hear your successes that you're having. So maybe this is the first time you found me and you're just starting to dip your toes into this process, into the Live Disease-Free plan. And I promise you it'll be life-changing, but that's only if you commit. If you're at the place where you're like, Pam, I have been following you. I totally get it. I'm ready. I want to be a wellness champion. I want to work with you in the academy. Then make sure to fill out or actually watch my masterclass training. Then you'll know all the steps we take in the academy. Then you can book a time with me, you can chat, and you can become a wellness champion right away. Otherwise, if you enjoy what I'm sharing and you want to be part of this series, make sure to like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so that you know when the next live training comes. And please share this with others. Let's help the world to start to treat the cause of what they're dealing with. Help them to get their health and their life back. Be a wellness champion. Take care and bye-bye for now.